This is the balloon kebab experiment. Now, for this experiment, you're going to need a balloon, surprise, surprise. And we're going to be using this little stick to be our kebab stick. This is a cocktail stick. Sometimes toothpicks can be good, as long as they're nice and smooth around the outside. So roll it around in your fingers. As long as it's smooth, there's a good chance this will work. It does need to be pretty sharp. So we're going to try it with this one. What I need you then to do is get some cooking oil, because we're going to need this as a lubricant to make this slippery. And all you need to be able to do is dip it in. So if you haven't got very much in there, you might need to pour some out into a little container and dip the end of your cocktail stick in to make it a bit slippery. But I can dip that in, that one. You need to blow the balloon up. You'll notice I've blown it up pretty much as high as it can go without popping. I know that some people find it pretty hard to blow balloons up. If you do, you're going to have to find someone else to do this for you. So blow it up as far as it can go, hold it there for a few seconds. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to stretch that rubber of the balloon in all directions, and this is just the best way. So hold it for a few seconds to let it stretch nicely, then let it down all the way. Then blow it up one more time, exactly the same. And you might notice it often goes a tiny bit bigger this time because we've actually loosened the grip in the rubber, if you like. It's not pulling on itself so much, so it goes a bit bigger. Hold it again for a few more seconds. Remember, we're just trying to stretch the rubber. This time, don't let it down all the way, let it down halfway. That'll do. And then you need to tie a knot in it, or if you can't do that, find someone else to do it for you. Okay, remember this is just an ordinary balloon. I want you to notice, hopefully you can see this, but there's the knot, but opposite the knot we see a dark patch. That's the bit I want to concentrate on here, so a dark patch. What we're going to do is see if we can push this cocktail stick into that dark patch. So remember what I said? You dip the cocktail stick in the oil to lubricate it. What I want you then to do is to take that out, put your stick here, you'll get a little blob of oil hopefully, and with your fingers I want you to rotate the stick, hopefully you can see my fingers moving, rotate it gently and push gently at the same time and see what happens. With a bit of patience, hopefully this is what happened for you. As you can see, I pushed a hole into the balloon. Now, one other thing we could try is putting something slightly larger in. Now I've got on the table in front of me some kebab skewers made from bamboo. There's one there. I'm going to remove this and see if I can put the kebab skewer in instead. So let's remove that. As you can see, it's going to start going down because that hole is open a bit now. And let's put that through. Very interesting. One other thing we could do is, can we push it all the way through? Let's see. Because we have a dark patch of rubber, we pushed it through this end, and there's a dark patch of rubber around where the knot is. The question could be, can we push it through that dark patch of rubber as well? Let's see. And spin and push at the same time. Spin and push at the same time. Balloon kebabs. Of course, what would happen if we pull the stick out? You've already had one clue. Let's do it again. Well, that hole we made there is actually scrunched up so small, hardly any air is leaking out. This hole is still open a little and it is leaking, but of course I could block it by putting the stick back in. Of course, an interesting thing you could try is think of a way of fixing some cotton to the end, so you'd have something like a giant needle and thread, and see if you could sew the balloon with a piece of cotton. I wonder if it would work. So how is it that we can actually make a hole in a balloon without the balloon popping? Well, of course, when you stick a point in the side of a balloon, as often we do when we're playing with balloons and pop them, when you stick a point there, we do make a hole of course, but the rubber there is pulling in all directions, it's stretching in all directions, pulling, and when you make a hole there, it pulls the hole open in all directions, makes it much wider, and so the air escapes really quickly and under lots of force, which is why it makes a bang sound. That dark rubber though, isn't stretching in the same way, so when you make a hole in this, it doesn't suddenly pull open. You saw that when I pulled the stick out again, the hole just stayed there. It didn't pull it open in all directions because the rubber there isn't acting in quite the same way. If we could see this rubber under a microscope, you would notice that there's lots of fibres crossing over each other as the rubber fibres. But by blowing the balloon up, we stretch and pull them apart a little bit. They're still airtight, the air doesn't come out. But when you get this stick, one way of thinking about it is I was pushing the stick and wiggling it backwards and forwards and pushing it so it went through the fibres, pushed its way in between the fibres. Some would have got broken as it pushed through, but lots of them would have been just pushed out of the way because they're flexible and it would push them out of the way. And that's how come when I let go, the stick would have been there and pull it out, it will leave a tiny little hole there. Remember, I pushed it all the way through, so I pushed it here and then I eventually got the big stick and pushed it all the way through because the rubber there, where the knot is behaving in a similar way to that. In fact, the rubber here is trying to close holes up even more. It's pushing there. So that's why when I pulled the stick out, that hole scrunched up totally. Do you remember me saying that? The hole there scrunched up very tightly. Probably some air was getting out, but it was pretty tight. But that hole was left open a little bit and I was able to push the stick back in there again.